Let's discuss this further now with News24 Legal Journalist Karyn Maughan. Karyn, always a pleasure to speak to you. This is key, of course, that it's happening on the Independent Directorate's head, Karyn Maughan's last day in office.
Absolutely. And I mean, when one considers that for the last 7 months, the the investigating directorate have literally been fighting to ensure that this red notice is issued, certainly from her perspective, quite a way to leave the ID. When I spoke to her, she said that it was a bittersweet experience, but that she was hoping that as a result of all the hard work that had been done by the officials involved in this case, that this would translate into the Gupta brothers finally facing justice and, potential extradition to South Africa to face trial in the Bloemfontein High Court.
Now, Karyn, the investigative directorate, of course, is going to be without her from tomorrow. Is she worried, in your conversation with her, about the impact her departure could have on this particular matter now being seen to finality and getting the brothers in South Africa?
Well, Bongiwe, I think that, we are expecting an announcement very soon from President Cyril Ramaphosa in terms of who will replace Karyn Maughan. And while she hasn't been drawn on the circumstances in which she has left her position, there has been widespread media speculation and certainly reporting around her resignation letter that suggested that she had been very frustrated at the time that she chose to leave the ID, but certain of the kind of skills and capacity constraints that it had been hit with and the impact of those constraints on its ability to prosecute cases successfully. But certainly, from her perspective, I think the overwhelming message coming from her was just that, she was hoping that in respect of these red notices, which are so instrumental in terms of ensuring the extradition of people accused of corruption and fraud, and particularly money laundering and fraud in respect of the Guptas in this matter, that there will be an outcome that sees them facing trial in South Africa.
Now, Karyn, there's so many allegations that have been leveled against the Gupta brothers in South Africa. And I wonder, with this particular development, summarize it for us as to what does this particular update relate to in terms of allegations?
Well, in terms of the red notice that was issued against the Gupta brothers, it is in relation to the New Lane case that is currently before the Bloemfontein High Court, in which former Transnet official Intepol Sharma is an accused. Essentially, the allegation is that the Free State Agricultural Department paid over 24 million rand to Sharma's company to conduct a so-called feasibility study into another project which we all know of, the Stina Dairy Farms project, in which it is alleged that impoverished black farmers, money destined that was intended to be spent on impoverished black farmers in terms of a dairy project, was actually siphoned off to the Gupta family, and specifically in respect of that 30 million rand Gupta wedding that took place at Sun City. And the allegation in terms of the New Lane case is that a feasibility study that in fact was conducted for 1.5 million rand, the department in fact spent 24 million rand on that, and that money was then siphoned off to the Gupta family in an elaborate money laundering exercise. Of course, the Gupta family denying those allegations and Intepol Sharma also denying them. But essentially, the allegation is that New Lane was a precursor to the far more extensive Estina fraud that subsequently followed it. And of course, Bongi, you and I both know that the state capture inquiry, preparing to deliver judgments on various aspects of alleged state capture involving the Free State government, not least of all the so-called asbestos scam and that massive housing project that is also alleged to have been gripped by state capture.
And of course, Karyn, that report, we are waiting for it with bated breath, because we also want to get a sense on the Bosasa side, the alleged capture of the, treasury, etc. But I'd like us to, also as we wrap up this conversation, I mean, the IED, we saw it announcing in July last year, that confusion around it obtaining red notices, but also we realized at some point that they were saying that this is still under consideration. Now we're seeing that they say that they've managed to obtain them. I wonder what has been the response of the two Gupta brothers themselves, because we know that their wives are not possibly going to be coming with them.
Well, having spoken to their lawyers, they were made aware that these red notices had been issued, and they do intend, Bongi, to bring some form of legal challenge to this. I don't know, what form that legal challenge will take. Obviously the issue of a red notice against them is essentially going to track all their movements overseas and allow them potentially to be detained pending an extradition process being brought against them by the ID and the NPA. But certainly from their perspective is that they intend to challenge these notices. And their lawyers saying to me that they will do so on the basis of what he described as material misrepresentations by the NPA, not providing any further detail on what those misrepresentations exactly are, but making it very clear that the Guptas will put up a fight against these red notices and certainly don't regard them as having been validly issued against them.
All right, Karyn, I wonder if we'll be burning the midnight oil as we wait for that report from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry's, installment, the third one, of course, that is. But let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time. That was a News24 legal journalist, Karyn Maughan, and we're talking about this issue, of course, of these red notices that have been issued. And from what you've heard there from Karyn, it looks like there's still going to be legal challenges here. It may not be as clear-cut as this issue is.